Speaking
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our
moistly.
usual Tuesday afternoon version of Speaking Moistly with me, as usual, is Greg. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. No, well, I mean, in the green room, we were already getting deep on the topics, and we were discussing. Um, you're saying that we need to be aggressive and push for change, and the beginning of the battle is actually the end of the truckers' convoy is the beginning of the battle because now we've pushed into where the government's saying no. So now the real work begins. Would you say the tough get going?
Yeah, yeah. When the going get tough, the
There you go.
tough get going.
Yeah.
And you know, we have a kind of clash here on Speaking Moistly sometimes because Mark, sometimes you're kind of despairing. You're despairing a little bit. You're like, I need to go find land. I need to go hide in the
Yeah.
woods.
Oh my goodness.
And it's over. It's over. It's
I
so
found a
over.
show about bunkers. It's like a discovery show about bunkers. I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, that's a nice
When
bunker.
when are you starting your prepping channel, Mark? Have you started already?
With Mark.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Soon. I don't think YouTube would let me make money. But anyway, regardless.
There's
So
I've seen really, have you not seen some of these big YouTube channels though with all about prepping, all
oh
about
man,
like
oh
farming
yeah,
and
it's a
stuff? Yeah.
huge market. And like you can't get if you wanted food that's going to last you years, and like because you could most of the food you get in the grocery store, the longest lasting is like 2 years, 2.5 years.
Hmm.
Rice, if you store it right, never goes old or goes bad. Water doesn't go bad. Like certain things are
Right.
just like totally stable. But in the grocery store, for things that do start to separate and things like 2 years is a good rule of thumb. But you can buy packets of food that'll last years, and are like, I don't
Right.
know, you cook it somehow and it's just fine. But you can't get like the really good ones anymore. Like
Hmm.
the stock of these kind of foods. Even I was idly looking a few years back, even like 2018, 19, and before COVID hit, the stock was low. And now, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. So
Yeah.
prepping's big, man, big, big, big.
Yeah. Prepping is big, but I was going to say we have a clash on this show
Yes, yeah,
because
I
you
guess.
you are you are always kind of despairing. You before we turned the camera on, Mark was like, "Oh, well, look, we tried to protest at the trucker convoy and we got squashed,
I don't think I said. Did I say
and
that?
Max Bernier tried to start his party and he got like,
I didn't think he. No,
rinsed
I didn't think he got
rinsed.
squashed.
Are,
He got. He's at
are you gonna
13.
let me finish,
Sorry.
man? So you were talking about Max Bernier and how he got rinsed by the mainstream media. And I
Mhm.
keep trying to remind Mark and telling our audience that we don't know what winning looks like.
That's
And
true.
really, what is the opposite of not going to the trucker convoy and not doing that big protest, or not trying to start the PPC and not trying to have like an anti-globalist movement in Canada? And the answer is nothing. It's sitting on our hands and doing nothing. And maybe it's, going out into the woods to prep, which I don't. If you have a family, I totally think that's, makes sense, and it's a wise decision. However, if you are hoping to actually win and solve the problem for the future of humanity, then that's kind of running away in a sense. And again, if you have a family, I don't blame you because you have to, raise your kids properly if you want them
Yeah.
to blah blah blah. But that it's the beginning of the battle. Getting crushed by the state police in Ottawa is the beginning of the battle. The Maxime Bernier getting called names in the media because he's actually making an impact, that's the beginning of the battle. And then once again, I feel like I talk about this all the time now. Case in point is Mr. Donald J. Trump, south of the border. The very beginning of his campaign was getting called names, was getting
Yeah.
called racist. That
Yeah.
was the beginning of his campaign, which eventually led to his victory. And the reason we actually got into this topic initially is because I was talking about Derek Sloan with the Ontario party. He actually acquired Roger Stone, who was behind the scenes to help get Trump elected. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'm looking at Sloan right now and what he's doing with his Ontario party campaign for the Ontario election, and I'm looking at them as inspiring seeds that he's planting. Like, I think
Mhm.
the seeds he's planting right now are actually very exciting and very promising because he's doing something that I've always wanted conservatives to do in this country, which is changing the moral frame, throwing out this liberal moral framework of, are you racist? Are you transphobic? Do you care enough about climate change? And he's like, I don't care about any of that. And I care about, the prosperity of our country, the prosperity of children, the safety of children, and, calling out information about certain pharmaceutical products. Like, he's changing the moral framework and changing the conversation.
If Canadians will go there, I would be all over. And so like I was watching Ralphie May. You know that Ralphie May thing?
Would you go there?
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you,
why haven't you gone there?
Hold on, let me make the point.
Okay.
So Ralphie May was talking about working in Canada. So like I sent you, it was like an hour and 45 minutes. I just watched it the other day. It's great. But he was talking about working in Canada, and he said
Ralphie May is the comedian.
He's the big fat comedian.
The past comedian.
Yeah,
the late comedian.
He's dead now. Yeah, but he was doing.
Rest in peace, Ralphie May.
Yeah, man. It's sad. Because he was super funny and he had some knowledge in him. But he was saying that working in Canada, Canadians don't go with you for that shock kind of funny. Like, and he was giving a comparison. He's like, in New York and Los Angeles, he said Los Angeles more than New York, but certain areas. And he told a really kind of off-color joke, and he said audience would be laughing. In Canada, they're inhaling because they're shocked. They're right, and you can't laugh when you're inhaling. And fundamentally what I think is, I don't know about what the split is, but there's so many of the population, 70-30, right? Like, I don't know exactly why this is, but for the same reason that a Canadian audience won't go for the shock joke, a Canadian audience has a hard time with a Roger Stone. Names in me, has a hard time with a different kind of approach. So, and I hope it works. Like, I hope people get shaken out of their complacency, because I mean, like Roe v. Wade, we're going to talk about that. That's a whole different kind of complacency that has overtaken Canada for 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's a situation where people prefer not to think about the reality of the thing that they think is the moral, in the moral frame that you were talking about, is the moral thing to do. They don't want to think about the consequences. And so it's very interesting. Just to see that play out.
And I think that something that the Conservative Party gets terribly, horribly wrong, and even sometimes to a lesser extent, the PPC, is they think that maybe we can strategize by pandering to people who will never vote for us. Maybe we can try to, cater to these people who will never vote to us. And it's true. There are a lot of Canadians who are gonna like inhale and, not get into the shock content. And let's face it, after the pandemic, after the past 2 years, their minds have been totally compromised by propaganda and fear porn. So like, they're not even thinking straight anymore. And it's like, so trying to even speak to these people or convince these people of anything isn't the goal of Derek Sloan or people who are taking this approach at all. And I don't think it should be the approach that anyone opposing Trudeau should take.
But those people are being weaponized against people who would take up the banner of Derek Sloan and other.
Yeah, no, but you need to look at the other numbers. You need to look at the numbers of how many people showed up at the Trucker Convoy, how many people are fed up with Justin Trudeau, and how many people are, combined between the Conservative Party, the PPC, and everybody else who maybe is apolitical. Like, those are the people that you need to speak to, the people who will actually vote for you, and the people who are sick of the liberal moral framework, that, like it's about rallying those people together and really making it a force to be reckoned with. Because think about it. Did Donald J. Trump ever pander to Democrats? Did he ever pander to this kind of like leftist ideologies? On the contrary, he kind of openly mocked it most of the time.
The left ideology, yeah, no. Well, but I mean, Trump walked right by Greta. That's pandering to the right. No, I'm just kidding.
There, yeah, it is. It is actually. It is totally. And more importantly, that is pissing off the left. That's pissing off like the liberal people. And I think you're right. I think that it's going to take time in Canada. I think there's a lot of conservative-minded people, or people who identify as conservative or whatever, who will still be like, oh, I don't like Derek Sloan. I don't like this aggressive Trumpian politics in my country. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. But as things get more intense, because things are getting more intense, eventually people will snap and they'll go one way or the other. And they'll be like, you know what? This guy is actually making sense. And I actually see what's going on here. And like, enough is enough. And
there's my concern. And so like you were saying, if you have kids, I understand. My concern is these people who are in charge provincially and federally have gotten really good at identifying groups to kind of stack, and you know what I mean? And so they play people and play power. And so we are in a situation where complacency is the order of the day, because if you stand up and identify yourselves like the truckers did, then you get crushed like the truckers did. And I'm not saying that that's a reason to not fight. I'm saying it's a reason to be cognizant of how the establishment, how the government responds, and modify your tactics and figure out what is effective. And you're saying, I know, but it has to be what is effective, because like look at Rolling Thunder. They did a very similar style protest after the trucker convoy.
Sure.
And what happened? Was it effective? Would you say that it was an effective protest?
I mean, nothing even holds a candle to how effective the trucker convoy was.
I agree with you. Removing Aaron O'Toole was very, very, I don't think anybody anticipated that happening so easily. But Aaron O'Toole crumbled, and very quickly. So I agree with you. The trucker convoy was very effective. But my question is, repeating that tactic, going to Ottawa with a large group of people, motorcycles, so with vehicles, was this something that worked this time? Right? Was that as effective? I don't know. I don't think it was. Probably not.
Sure. Well, but once again, it's like, I'm excited about the trucker convoy because it's something that moved the needle. I'm excited about Derek Sloan hiring Roger Stone and changing the moral framework, because I think it's something that's going to move the needle. I'm very kind of bored and tired and disappointed in, conservative party members, or even sometimes Max Bernier, just talking about like, hey, the economy again, again, let's talk about the gold standard again. It's not moving the needle. It's not introducing any more people into the fray. It's just kind of
in 2019, I think it was 2019 or 2018. When I started my show, Faith Goldie was running for mayor. Mm-hmm. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. And I thought Faith Goldie was going to win. I was like, she's doing great. She had call bankers. She had all sorts of crazy things. Then she couldn't have, she had lots of name recognition. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. She had people in subways handing out her flyers and stuff. And in a fair election, I think she gives John Tory a run for his money. And like, it didn't work out. And she was trying to change the conversation, she got on a live stream and said things that she shouldn't maybe have said, but realistically, if it's looked at in context, the use of that to accuse her of being a supremacist of any kind is kind of ridiculous. But they smeared her, they destroyed her.
Well, she did go on a podcast, which is like, that was a bad call on her part.
Yeah. Well, the storming, what was it? The dark
it's the Daily Stormer, which is like,
that's
those guys are like genuinely.
I
wouldn't want to associate with those people.
White supremacists or somebody. That's probably the group that you would say, right? And are there chapters, or is it just the Daily Stormer? It's not like, right? Like, it's not like Daily Stormer Canada, Daily Stormer US. It's just like the one, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, sure. Like, it's anyway, we don't have to go on.
I'll agree. No, I know. I'll agree that it probably wasn't the best career move for Faith Goldie to go on that podcast, but it doesn't make her a white supremacist by any stretch. I don't think going on a podcast like that, while probably
it's typical guilt by association, which is like anyone you talk to, you share all the same values as, which is like absurd.
Right. And so when I think about somebody trying to change the framework, I think back to that, and I think that just how far we've come since then, right? Since that mayoral election, and how those seeds didn't really plant the seeds that got planted during that mayoral campaign grew into what they did to Maxime Bernier, and then like the slander and the dragging people through the mud and the Antifa and all that other stuff.
Why did you start your show?
Because Andrea Horvath was telling people that sanctuary province was just some words that really didn't mean anything, and I realized that me telling like the guys at my bus stop, hey guys, have you heard of this sanctuary province thing? Don't listen to what Andrea Horvath's saying. She's lying. And so I knew I needed to get some kind of platform to talk to people about what's going on. And then some people were like, well, some people could make the argument, I'm misrepresenting things, and I'm not trying to misrepresent anything. I'm trying to set the record straight about the ridiculous massaging of the truth that our media
Mhm.
and our
Mhm.
politicians engage in.
Mhm. Right. Well, I mean, I just see a pattern here. You're identifying and again, I remember I said earlier, we don't know what winning looks like.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And every instance where it's like someone gets crushed by the state establishment, whatever, whether it's Faith Goldie, whether it's Max Bernier, whether it's the Trucker Convoy, every single instance of that, a lot more people, it moved the needle, and a lot more people got upset with how Faith Goldie was treated, for example, like, Bell Media not even running her ads, which is against the CRTC rules,
And nobody cared. And like,
which implies like, why do we even have CRTC rules if people pick favorites? The CBC didn't have a debate, which is exactly why we pay them for, to like,
yeah, right.
maintain
I know.
a balanced debate. That didn't happen. That's what red pilled me. I was like,
Yeah.
it was
Oh, yeah.
how,
Oh.
yeah. Well, it was, say what you want about Faith Goldie, but it's like, we have rules here where anyone is allowed to run based on certain parameters.
Mhm.
And if you have a certain popularity, you should be invited to the debate. CBC should hold a debate, which they
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the biggest one, I worked in radio at the time, and they just rejected her ads. And it's
Yeah.
like, I learned in college and
Yeah,
while
you can't do
working for a
that.
radio
Yeah.
station, is like, that is against the rules. You should get your license taken away, Bell Media, AM
Yeah.
1010, for that.
Yeah.
That's like, that is, you can't break the CRTC rule. Anyway, so like, that was like, wow. So this is, our democracy showing cracks, and no one seems to care. But
That's what I mean.
but dude, my point is like, I wouldn't be here if that wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
We wouldn't have met
It's true.
if Max Bernier wouldn't have done his thing. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't have met and connected with hundreds and hundreds more people at the Trucker Convoy if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying it's,
I am optimistic still, even though it's like, it looks like dark times are ahead. I'm optimistic still, because one of the first things that Canada needs to overcome is apathy. Okay. Like,
but there's so many different kinds of apathy. Like what you
political
kind of-
apathy.
I know, but what you lump in as political apathy is like some people who have tried to make change and then backed off because of the pushback, or some people who have tried and failed, so they've checked out
Well,
of the system.
the next one,
Or-
that's demoralization.
It is
So
demoralization.
there's
But I want-
apathy, and then there's
before I-
demoralization. Those are the first two things to overcome.
Before I forget though, the USSR lasted for 70 years, right? And nobody could have predicted that the Chernobyl event would lead to the fall of the USSR, right? So I think that's interesting, because we don't know what's coming. We don't know what's going to be next. Like you said, we don't know what the winning condition is here, and who knows when it'll happen. I just want like everyday life for regular people to be livable, survivable, and something that is like, you can, if you work hard and all of that other stuff, you can have extra and all of that. And
You just want to grill.
It seems like I just want to grill. Yeah, that's right, man. A nice backyard barbecue, and have some friends over, right?
Just want to grill.
That's right. Just leave people alone, man. Leave Brittany alone.
Leave Brittany alone. That's right.
That was the craziest time. That was the craziest timeline. So we've covered a lot of ground, really. And I think that, I hope that we get the seeds that you're talking about, but it feels like the longer things happen, the seeds that grow are these awful, awful mutant seeds that take away our rights and give medical officers of health and other people wild authority to just kind of take away people's rights further. And I hope the pendulum starts to return, but I don't know if we need to, like, if there needs to be a war room that's planning like the next steps, or if it needs to be like just organically Harry Seldon, like eventually this is going to collapse because it can't sustain its own weight. It's its own lies upon lies upon lies. But they seem to be really good at that. They seem to be able to sustain all that with another just big lie.
Listen, we need to trust God. We need to keep fighting and just keep telling the truth, and then things will work out. Not for all of us, but like, it's that's kind of what we need to focus on. We need to focus on like the bigger picture here.
Life is terminal for everyone on a long enough timeline, right? And so yeah, you're not wrong.
Is that a Fight Club reference?
Maybe. It's in there, probably.
Okay.
I thought it was a Star Trek reference, actually. I guess they didn't really talk like that in Star Trek. It was
You
supposed
and
to be
your
a
Star
utopia.
Trek. You and your Star Trek.
No longer. It's gone all woke.
Are
It's
we
terrible
gonna
now.
move to Roe versus Wade here?
Yeah, I guess so. We could do like a couple minutes on Roe v. Wade, and then we'll shut her down. I gotta go get. I guess it's not that late, but we'll shut her down anyway. So what happened this morning? Do you want to explain it, or do you want me to?
You can.
There was a pre-print leaked. This has never happened before. No Supreme Court SCOTUS decision has leaked before it's been put down. Usually what happens is they give the decision and there's like a lid. You can't report on it until the decision is given. And then it's actually handed on paper to an aide. The aide brings it down the hallway. I heard Rachel Maddow describe this in like 2009. The aide brings it down a hallway, and then the people who are in there run out and yell whatever's on the paper to their correspondent, so they can be the first one to report it. That's how Supreme Court decisions are usually rendered. Whatever. So this leaking of the full decision by Alito, who's the lead justice in this case, that they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, looks to be the speculation. Hubbub. This is not my speculation. This is internet speculation on Elon Musk's Twitter. That there's some kind of Democrat ploy to have public outrage harnessed to make the Supreme Court change their mind on overturning Roe v. Wade. So that's where we're at with Roe v. Wade. The not finalized Supreme Court decision is basically we're going to overturn it, and it was never correct in the first place. And what have we done? And Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and all of the usual suspects have all weighed in. Everybody. And there's been NDP. The conservatives weren't allowed to say anything. There was a lid on them. The Candace Bergen said, no, you're not commenting on this. The NDP have been commenting. I think that Justin Trudeau's probably commented. I should probably find that out.
He tweeted today.
Did he?
He said the typical, I pledge allegiance to abortion, the woman's right to choose, blah, blah,
so
blah.
On one hand, in Canada, I talked about this on my show this morning.
I'm not saying that lightly. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I know.
But the typical like right to choose, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But the cognitive dissonance of a woman has the authority to pursue her dreams. This is Section 7 of the Charter, right? Be as fulfilled as you can be. And that means that she can commit infanticide, right? Remove or abortion, whatever you want to call it. That's no problem. But if you want to get on this airplane, your body belongs to me, and you sign up for this vaccine right here, right now. And if you don't, you don't have access to that. You don't have any rights. What are we? What am I, a baby?
Yeah, it's pretty. What is there to even say about it? It's just it's so absurd at this point.
We're just round the bend, aren't we? It is peaceful protest.
We're past the pale here.
If it is peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter to behead statues and topple statues of specific people. But if truckers bring their trucks to Ottawa, that's an insurrection and national security emergency. Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're round the bend nuts. Everything's nuts. Everything is inverted and backwards. And
actually, yeah, this is funny. Viva Fry replied to Justin Trudeau, unless it's a woman's right to choose not to get jabbed, then you know what's what's better for women than women themselves. So when it comes to the jab decision, Trudeau knows best.
It doesn't matter if you're a birthing person or not.
It's not your choice when it comes to this. There will be consequences.
There already are consequences. Have you seen? So I watch. I saw Billboard Chris, one of his things. Do you know who Billboard Chris is?
I do. Yeah, I actually interviewed him in Ottawa. I have like an hour-long conversation.
Nice. Yeah, I had a 40-minute conversation with him on my show as well. It was really, really good.
Nice.
And he's so soft-spoken and just kind of willing to engage with people. But I always find it so interesting, the people, like I watched one this morning and the person was saying, "Oh, I'm a Brown student and I need to read more." And Chris was like, yeah, like you're a university student. You should read a lot more. Like,
no, yeah. Did you see the second interaction he had?
No, does it continue? I didn't.
Yeah. He posted another video, and this woman is basically like abusing him verbally, saying so like, "Oh, you're this, and like you're balding, you're old." He like makes a comment about him having a small dick or something, and then he's and then she says, "Stay out of here, you stop spreading hate." It's amazing.
And see,
isn't it amazing?
That's the joke, right? Like,
yeah, it's like, okay, there's nothing I can add to this
This
that
is
isn't
the vaudeville.
already hilarious.
It's the vaudeville of the 2020s. Like
Yeah.
this is unbelievable.
I tweeted saying a leftist university student dishes out verbal abuse, then ends with "Stop spreading hate."
Yeah, but this is some kind of like weird. Remember planking? Remember the 20s?
Yeah.
This is the 2020 version of this, or 2020s version of. But I mean, this is much more vile. But it's such a weird.
It's much more pervasive and everywhere. It's
right.
weird
I would
because
much
for younger generations, it's actually, you know, sharing a political opinion is so threatening to them. It's so it's like it's portrayed as like, oh, you have these values, that's hateful.
Yeah.
So it's like very
right.
it's very strange.
And by extension,
like essentially yeah, and essentially for them, like hate has little to do with like, you know, your kind of like actions or your sort of like malice or like your emotions, which is, in my opinion, hate is an emotion. It's a very common human emotion that everyone feels at one point or another. And to just attribute it to, oh, everyone who has this opinion is hateful, especially when it's one that's like, hey, I don't think we should be giving kids hormone blockers. I don't think we should be promoting, you know what I mean? Like it's a pretty
that's a hateful opinion.
It's a pretty simple opinion. It's a pretty
this is not something that like 1 in 5 parents would like disagree with.
Excited about. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me about the student was like how incredulous they were, like how shocked they were about Chris's responses. And like listening to the person, you could tell they were parroting things that they had heard elsewhere. This wasn't earned knowledge. This wasn't something they knew. This was something they'd been told and indoctrinated into. And
well, no, yeah, it's like telling a kid that like Santa Claus isn't real, and they're like, huh, no way. Yeah, he is.
Right.
Yeah, and then he is.
And then you
let them. You're crazy. You're crazy. Like it's that kind of response of like, no way. You're not saying that. That's not real.
Right. And then you explain how it works a little bit, and then you know, like, we'll see if there's any gifts, you know, without my bank account this year, kid.
Yeah. Right? And then instead of Santa Claus, it's Chris.
Of course, you'd never do that.
Yeah, I think we should protect children. I don't think we should, assume that half of all kids are transgender. Kind of simple.
That response maps really, really well, and it's so interesting to watch this play out. And I mean, it's tragic. It's heartbreaking. Like, because it's such a serious threat. Like like you send your kids to school and then all of a sudden they come back and they're like this different person who believes in this really, really crazy ideology. And like, how do you fight back? Because there's parts of the ideology that are built in to resist somebody trying to talk sense into you. Like women exist and you are one. Like,
And back to the Roe versus Wade thing. Yeah. Like I really, this is like every other political issue, but essentially it's becomes like the nuance is completely gone, right, out of the conversation. And I think for something like abortion, you know, personally, I think maybe sometimes an abortion would be justified in the case of like a rape or something like this. But the Democratic stance is like even in the 3rd trimester, it's like abort at any point.
The Democratic stance is like even until they're 4 years old, I'm pretty sure.
Is it 4?
They've gone a week.
Someone in my Twitter comment said 28 days after, which is still total, like that's murder, bro.
Yeah,
that's murder.
It's not like this
even the 3rd trimester, even the 3rd trimester, like that is like
murder. It's like red rum.
It's so hard to talk about this topic without, I don't know, they don't like the women in my family like hate it when I have any opinion on this, but my kind of
identify as a woman. Just be like, don't worry, ladies, I'm identifying as a woman. I've got a uterus. Just like
they wouldn't like that.
They wouldn't like that.
No, they wouldn't like that. They wouldn't buy that. But what, like the perspective I try to come at from this, like this pro-life, pro-choice conversation, I feel like pro-choice has given birth to like a lot of just like mainstreaming this type of sexual irresponsibility, which is actually really harmful to women.
Yes.
No. Yes. And like that doesn't get talked about nearly enough.
With people. Yeah. Like there's a connection with sexuality that happens, and people bond and all of that kind of stuff, and making it socially acceptable, making women like men, like, why can't I be as slutty as men, or whatever. That's, you're not built that way. Not you, the ubiquitous women, but like, or yes, you, the ubiquitous women, not you, like a specific woman, because maybe some women are, but generally the biology of a woman doesn't lead itself to promiscuity. It just doesn't, because there's an inherent danger that you might get pregnant, right? So women aren't wired that way, but for men, we're wired to spread our seed. Like Genghis Khan had how many like bastard sons and like children, right? He had descendants. That guy was like very productive, very successful.
Yeah.
From procreation,
very successful from a procreation standpoint.
Bill Clinton was too, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that it's too bad that a lot of people who are like fully on board with pro-choice, no question. Like I find it really sad, because it's like, don't you at least see how the pro-life side is honoring women and kind of like really trying to make, her body more of like a sacred thing that shouldn't be as easily given away or violated? Like that's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of like the point of pro-life, is to kind of be like, this is more about really honoring yourself more and taking sex a lot more seriously, and along with that being more responsible. And I think that a lot of things have come from this whole kind of pro-choice culture. I mean, aside from like the hyperbolic, like crazy examples of women being on Twitter and being like, yeah, I got another abortion, let's go. Like aside from that, there's a lot of other
bots, and like, I'm sure there's a couple real ones.
I hope so. I'm
sure that people don't hate themselves that much.
Like gloating about that is.
What's your favorite? The actor on The Good Place did, but it's weird. It's weird.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing, and I think that there's a lot of things that we don't like investigate nearly enough in our pop culture.
Well, people don't want it. People don't want to, like you said, my mom, like if you identified as a woman, that would hold up the idea that men can identify as women at the drop of a hat whenever they want to have a conversation about women's things. And like, you could insert yourself anytime you want and say, well, like, I'm just doing what Justin Trudeau endorses, like, right. So like, maybe that's being more aggressive, as you were saying, right? Disruptive. Right.
Yeah.
But people won't go with it. They won't go with you for that. Right. And I
would try to make the argument. I'm trying to like work on the best like joke or argument to be like, don't you see how like pro-choice really helps out like drunk Eric at the bar get laid? You know what I mean? It's like, why are we making this all about, why are we helping drunk Eric get laid? Like, don't you think drunk Eric should like work harder to get to like have sex with you, as opposed to like
it's not to make it easier for him to get laid. It's to undermine womanhood, I think, at core, because like, if women were allowed to do whatever women wanted to do, they'd raise their kids, I think, fundamentally. And I mean, I'm not saying that's all they do. You don't do just one thing. People are multifaceted. You have times where you do different things in different periods of your life. But I think, given the choice, because fundamentally, the people who are at your deathbed isn't Alice from accounting, isn't your boss who was down the hall, right? It's hopefully your kids, if you're nice enough to your kids. And so we're selling women this false idea that your career is most important. And it's a false thing. And I feel terrible about it, because like, I tell my kids, both of them, male and female, that the most important thing is family, and like, not me family, the family that you're going to make, because your family for you is important. And they see them. It's important for me that they see themselves in the role of a parent, or somebody who's responsible for starting a family like that. Because I think ultimately that's the meaning of life. And I'm not going to say that the whole women's movement is to take us away from that, but selling women this idea that you're going to be taken care of by a great career, it's partially true. Like, an intelligent person who has a good career, that's great. But your family is going to take care of you. Your career may pay for the things that your family needs, but your family is going to take care of you.
And I think something that's interesting about what you're saying is most pro-choice people would say that's completely irrelevant. They would
Yeah.
probably say, what do you mean? Like, the right for a woman to have a career. How is that related to the pro-choice question? And it's like, well, the pro-choice like assumption is essentially deciding not to be a mom is like the most important it's the primary value,
Yep.
in the democratic society is the right to not have kids,
Yep.
the right to not be a mom,
The right
and
to be
refuse being
selfish.
a mom.
It's
The
the
right to
extension of
refuse being a mom despite making anyway.
making a baby.
I,
Yeah.
I just don't
It's the
I just
it's
don't like how it mainstreams irresponsibility, I think. And I know a lot of people will be like, ooh, we can't say that, but it's like
controversy.
if there were more consequences for having to get an abortion, then you would think twice before again sleeping
Somebody
with
was
drunk Eric at the bar.
I said I didn't say it. I saw on a Twitter probably feed, but somewhere feed somebody was saying if you get an abortion, you should be sterilized with it, and then people would think twice. And I was like, ooh, nasty, but interesting. Anyway, I think we're going to call it there. Final thoughts, and where can they find you, sir?
I don't know. Hope I didn't get canceled from that conversation, but
Holy smoke, me too.
only time will tell.
I
Find
won't
me on my
cancel you.
YouTube channel, Greg space Wycliffe, or you can go to my Instagram at Greg Wycliffe, one word. Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's always a pleasure, sir. And for me, you can find me at canadapoly.com and canadareport.co, and Speaking Moistly at the YouTube channel and all my properties as well. And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, no, that's the
Bye
wrong
bye.
one. I pushed it the wrong.